Let's go ahead and go to Wes. Wes, you had something kind of tangential to this conversation about price gouging and price controls and things like that, and something that I'm sure Kamala Harris has had quite a bit to say. So I'll go ahead and pass this torch to Wes. Wes, why don't you go ahead and introduce this topic and kind of give us a little bit of background on this?
Right. Well, I kind of agree with what Kamala's been saying in her stump speech about like price gouging, and like I'm on board with that. I'm not like a Kamala fan by any means. Um, but the issue at hand would be Kroger admitting that it was price gouging. And this is something that I have been a stick in the mud about for probably almost a year. I've been talking about Kroger price gouging and Kroger posting record profits while blaming inflation for the cost of for the increasing cost of their goods, while the egg market and Kroger were both posting record profits. And I was just like, no, that's not just inflation. You're taking advantage of inflation and you're increasing the price even more. And I think it was last week, the Kroger, he has some weird title. It's like Kroger Pricing Administration Officer or something like that, admitted that they increased prices more than they needed to. And they used inflation as the reason. And they told their customers that the reason the cost went up is because we passed inflation onto the customers. Our costs went up, so your costs went up. Sorry. But they weren't just passing it on, they were passing it on and surpassing it. And they admitted to that last week. So I want to talk about why this is like so criminal in my mind. And like one of the main reasons that I find it so criminal is because this is food that we're talking about. And so like I want to immediately like stomp out any ideas that people are going to say like, oh yeah, like it's normal to like increase prices for inflation and then raise prices to make more profit. Like that's fine if you're selling a Louis Vuitton purse. I don't give a shit if inflation is 3% and you raise the price of that purse by like 10%. Like this is food. And it also makes it easier for competitors to just go along with the price inflation because, again, it's food, so you have to buy it. So, like, if Kroger raises their prices to $5 for a dozen eggs and Walmart raises their price to $5 for a dozen eggs, neither of them lose business. They both just increase their profits, which is what we're finding out what is exactly. So that was a long
Yeah.
speech,
No, that's
long
okay.
intro, but that's what I wanted to talk
Oh, I
about.
gotcha. Tiberius, what do you? I know you've been on quite a few panels already, kind of talking about price gouging and some of these price gouging laws and things like that. Go ahead and if you could just give us kind of your opinion on this whole thing about Kroger admitting to increasing those prices beyond inflation levels.
Yeah, there's a long and a short to this. I'll try to keep this short because I've got a lot of different subtopics that I want to cover on this one. Obviously, some people are just pissed because a lot of people had to pay 30% more for their groceries last year or the year before compared to what they're used to, and some of that has come back down. Like chicken and pork per pound is a lot more in favor of what it was on the pre-COVID days. Steak's kind of a little high, unfortunately, but for a while their eggs was expensive as hell, right? A lot of people were pissed, and I totally get it. There's also levels where I've kind of been bitching about Storm for the opposite side of this. Americans have the lowest cost of food in the world, subsidized and unsubsidized by quite a large margin. We actually waste about 40% of it every single year, and most of the shit that we eat is terrible. A lot of this is making us incredibly fat. We do not ban high fructose corn syrup, which is banned in about most of the Eurozone, and it's as addictive as cocaine. Almost every major metric that I look at indicates that our food is actually too cheap. We waste too much of it. We don't actually try to preserve any of it. We don't actually seem to actually engage with it in a constructive manner. I know that's a bit of a hefty thing to take, but it's at
That's
least
like saying gas is cheap. Everybody burns it. That's the argument of the greenies a lot of the times is that gas is too cheap. People are just going to waste it. They're going to ride their dirt bikes. They're going to drive their big truck. But now with
Ironic.
food, you got the same problem. There's too much food. What are we doing with it? Well, we're making bad food because we're trying to make so much of it because we want to make sure we always have a surplus. But if we make shit food for a surplus, then is it really good for us?
Yeah, there's obviously a more nuanced conversation to get into with here, like subsidizing corn versus subsidizing tomatoes. I think that's a great sub conversation. But what I'm getting into is like there is a conversation to be had about even the Greens where they're like, hey, look, we don't like what these people are doing, so we want to increase the cost of this and pull the cost of this down. It is the same conversation. In a nutshell, it's priorities. What are you trying to prioritize and what are you trying to discourage? I know me and Demon Machine are probably going to go a round or two on this one, but I can't wait to have at it.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Demon Machine. Go straight into it. Let's just jump straight into it. What you got, Demon Machine? What do you want to say in
What about price gouging and shit?
Price gouging, Kroger, more specifically, Kroger was saying that they admitted to basically price gouging. Wherever you want to take it, man. Go ahead.
I mean, at this point, all you can really do is just not shop there. That's the first thing you do is just do something else, and that'll hurt. But, I mean, more realistically, go ahead.
I'm trying to raise my hand so hard right now,
dude. Just go ahead, jump in, buddy. Hey,
but like, I want you to realize that the reason that this came up is because they're trying to buy Albertsons, and they're in an FTC case right now for an antitrust law because they are about to have close to a monopoly. So, saying just buy somewhere else is literally the reason why this came up is because. For a lot of people, there's not about to be a somewhere else. There's only going to be a Kroger-owned operation, whether that's Kroger or Albertsons. That's why they're in an FTC case right now. That's why
wild.
This came up. So, like, the one thing I don't want to hear in this is just go buy some.
Out of curiosity.
They're not. It is the most popular store in my state. Like, there are more Krogers in my state than anything else, but the store that I shop at is not owned by.
Are all the stores called Kroger, or are there other ones that are not called Kroger? Is Food Lion Kroger, or is Publix Kroger?
I don't actually know, but I'm willing to. I'm guessing that it's probably like a family of brands. Like for you, Volkswagen. Like Volkswagen owns a million brands. Yeah. So I think it's probably something like that, or like Nestle. I don't know. For all I know,
I guess the point
I shop at is technically Kroger. It might be.
I guess I haven't. We have one Kroger, and it's pretty popular, but we have in my area.
Don't y'all have a food?
7 different grocery stores within a mile.
I was gonna say, doesn't the East Coast have a lot of like food lines and stuff like that?
Yeah, we got food lines all over. We got 2. We got 2 that are pretty much the same distance from my house.
The reason that they're in an FTC case right now isn't an anecdotal one.
I mean, I'm asking, like, is it for a monopoly though?
Yeah, it's an antitrust case.
Where are they? I guess I'm trying to figure out what they're a monopoly of. Because if it's grocery stores, I don't see it down here. It doesn't mean it's not somewhere else, but like it's really lopsided here. Like we have one Kroger for 7 other ones.
I feel like we've had this discussion before where I've had to like clarify that antitrust laws and like monopoly laws don't just apply if you are a literal monopoly. Like you don't have to be the only person doing it.
Right.
But if you control like 51% of the market or something like that, then I don't know exactly.
I was going to say, what makes 51 bad versus 50? Because you still only have half the market.
Because if you control most of the market, then you can, control prices, you can control market shares.
Well, you can control what your part of the market does, but if the other people don't listen to you or if they want to take that as the opportunity to go around you because they can undercut you, then that's their opportunity.
I'll take I'll take this moment to kind of go into elaboration on what exactly it is that the FTC is looking to try to block, just so that there's some clearer error here. This is an article I got from a local10.com. It says antitrust regulators say the proposed merger would eliminate competition, leading to higher prices, poorer quality, and lower wages and benefits for workers. In February, the FTC issued a complaint seeking to block the merger before an administrative judge at the FTC. At the same time, the FTC filed a lawsuit in federal court in Oregon seeking the preliminary injunction. It says, will Kroger and Albertsons close some stores if they merge? They say no, so that could be a big part of what it is. If the merger is approved, Kroger and Albertsons have agreed to sell 579 stores in places where the stores overlap. The buyer would be CNS Wholesale Grocers, a New Hampshire-based supplier. So basically, yeah, it's kind of like what Wes is saying, is that essentially that they're saying, hey, this is getting to be a little bit too big. I don't know if this necessarily implies that it is a monopoly, but I could see where you can draw that distinction, because they're basically saying you're getting pretty large and it would eliminate competition.
If they're forced to sell 579 stores where they overlap, that's already telling you that they're saying, no, you would have a monopoly in this area.
And what do they mean by overlap?
One of these stores.
It
means that, like, if you go west down the main road for 3 miles, you can find an Albertsons, or if you go east down the road for 4 miles, you can find a Kroger, but they're both owned by the same person.
And there's nothing else around.
Yeah, exactly. Like real grocery store.
Right. There might be like a Dollar General or something like that, right? But I think that the bigger part of this,
they were having some sort of issue
that's
too.
What they call food desert.
Dollar General is having some issues. Their stocks like absolutely plummeted, and I haven't looked into exactly why that's the case. But if y'all know why, let me know.
I think the CEO of Dollar General was like, yeah, because people don't have any money right now.
Yeah,
they're just not spending it.
This is where I want to kind of bring it back a little bit, because I wasn't able to really speak too much on that price gouging thing. This is something that I've been really a big commentator on, which is the profit that companies are making. I'll kind of give you my quick spiel on this. There is a bigger detailed spiel I can give, but then I would put you to sleep with all the boring accounting jargon. Let's just put it this way. When you have a company that has multiple different revenue streams, not just in grocery, but also if you look at any kind of Kroger Plus, where they sell like t-shirts, in some cases furniture, you have pharmacy items, for example, it's very difficult to narrow it down to exactly one product that is exactly going over that inflation percentage. And again, I would expect, me and Wes kind of can get into this a little bit as well if you would like, where I would say is that I would expect companies to pass on inflation to consumers. Now, to a certain degree, and me and Wes talked about this a little bit off stream, but I'll give you guys kind of what I had discussed with Wes, which is that I think there's a level, right? And this is the problem, is that level is vague. Did they increase the price and they passed on consumers were they over the inflation limit by 0.1%? Or were they over the inflation limit by, say, 10 or 20 or 30%? Because that's dramatically different, right? There would be a need to explain, why are y'all over by 20%? Now, if they're over, by 0.1%, okay, I'd kind of expect that, right? When you look at CPI numbers, it's really kind of like just an average, right? This is what we're seeing throughout. So you're going to fall within that scale at some point, right? Either you're going to be a little bit under that, or you're going to be a little over that. Typically, if you're going to be a little bit over that. So that's where I stand on that profit sharing. Tiberius, you've been kind of quiet over there. Is there anything you want to chime in on this?
Not at the moment, actually.
Okay. Wes, what? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, there's not anything that you guys have really like chimed in on that I disagree with, or I'm like, yeah, I want to add extra nuance to it. Like, you guys have been hitting the nails on the head as far as I can tell.
Yay! The country's coming together.
Where's Sansa? We'll set that up real quick.
All right. Hey, you know what though? I think I want to make this kind of a staple. I'll find it whenever I get a stream deck, because I do intend to get a stream deck at some point. If you guys want to, sub and give a little bit of money to allow me to get a stream deck, I could totally do that as well. But I plan on getting a stream deck and want to have like some kind of thing that pops up and says like world peace or something, where we all have agreed on something. And when we talked about it earlier about the food, how other countries, for example, ban high fructose corn syrup, and I think we all pretty much agreed. I'm like, holy crap. This is why we bring everybody together here, because we're all reasonable people who don't have to find a reason to sit there and like argue against why we should have high fructose corn syrup in our supply chain.
Want to
Well,
cloud
The,
your
the
judgment.
only difference is that my answer for everything is capital, and we agree on everything
I
up
agree.
until that point.
Everything is capitalism, and it should be. See,
And
you
then I'm
agree.
like, no, that's actually capitalism's fault. And let me tell you why.
yeah,
It-
No, I did have one thing I wanted to add
Yeah, go
on
ahead.
that inflation thing before we move on, is that I do think that it doesn't matter to a certain point how much that inflation number was, because it is food. I want to like make that clear that that's my stance, in the sense that like, if you I agree with you that it is normal to adjust with inflation, and I agree with you that it is normal to adjust to increase your shareholder value because you have a fiduciary responsibility to them to do that. So it's normal to want to increase your profits. But when you are selling food in a pandemic, when people are struggling, it's really hard for me to give you any benefit of the doubt, whether it's 0.1% or 25%. I kind of don't care. Like, you are selling the thing that keeps people alive, and you need to be able to do that without seeking record breaking profit.
So, for anyone unaware, we have started a new show called The Political Compass. We are a group of people. This is not necessarily a regular debate panel that you guys may experience normally.
Yeah.
You may notice that there are varying viewpoints in this very room. So, the fun thing about this is that all of us have kind of come together. We've all been in the same spaces together. The other thing is that we've all been pretty tired of how conversations are taking place online. So this is kind of a way for us to get together, have a reasonable conversation, and honestly bring back some of that normalcy back to online politics.